In my ever ongoing series of, hey, what are other countries doing right now? I've got the very talented, very awesome Victor Lucas, who is the host and producer and creator of the Electric Playground.
Hey, welcome to EPN. My name is Victor Lucas, and we bring you the latest in everything cool every single day. Now, directly from my basement because we are all in self-isolation, but you know that already.
Welcome, Victor.
Thank you. Thank you. This is very cool. It's good to see you. It's been a long time.
I know it's been too long. It's been since Atlanta, which was like a decade ago.
Yeah, we keep up on social media, and I love your adventures and your sense of humor, and it's good to see you doing well and doing what you're supposed to be doing.
And I hate that you don't age. All right. So anyway, we're going to ask a couple questions. And the very first question is, how is life right now in Canada? And you don't need to apologize for anything. But anyway.
Okay. Life is strange in Canada, just like it is everywhere else. And I feel very sad for my friends in America, to be honest. It's not like we have it so much better here, but there is a little bit more responsibility, it feels, being taken by the federal government in our country and at the provincial level as well. And the case count is down, but I also feel like we're not getting the full story of the full penetration of the disease, and I feel like testing has been a problem in Canada as well. But I watch in abject horror the utter chaos that is happening through press conferences and around the sort of federal organization in America right now. And I have a ton of American friends. I've traveled into the States a lot over my career, and I know a lot of people down there. And it hurts my heart to see the suffering and I don't know, the utter lack of responsibility at from the White House. It's just unbelievable. But
Yeah,
things are okay in Canada.
So you guys right now have 26,000, almost 27,000 reported cases.
Yeah.
Now, what I've learned is clearly in most places the count is much higher because there's just not good testing. How is the testing there?
It's not good. It's like it varies from province to province. I just saw yesterday that there's been a lot more testing in Alberta than in British Columbia, which is the province right next to ours. And I'm in Vancouver, BC, right here. And that shouldn't be the case because we have more people in BC, and I feel personally like we should have done things a lot sooner across North America, across the West. The minute that China locked down a city and said, this is the only way we're going to deal with this, the rest of the world should have said, okay, airports closed, schools closed, and it would have sucked for 6 weeks, but we wouldn't have had this disease just go through everything, And I thought we got the pretty dramatic warning signs from China in January, and I was getting nervous right away because I'm a bit of a news hound anyways. So, I'm watching all this stuff all the time. I'm consuming media on a regular basis. That's my job. And I was just kind of mortified that things were just rolling so slowly. And then we started to see all the European cities start to get affected. And I feel like the only way we're going to start to feel safe about getting out and mingling with people again and going back to work and putting our kids in school is when we have a really, really thorough testing apparatus, and that we are confident that we can get tested and then tested again and feel safe, because, like every household, I think right now out there, every time that we have a sniffle or a cough or whatever, there is that immediate, like, what, do we have this? Or, did we get it somehow? And I think that's a common thing, but our house is very comfortable. I cover video games and movies, and we're filled to the rafters with entertainment. My kid is playing Nintendo Switch behind me right now on a school day. So I don't know if we're parents of the year or we're failing as parents, but we get outside in the sunshine and play catch a little bit, and we're trying to not even avoid going for walks and stuff. We're doing everything we can to just stay in the house. Tomorrow I bundle up for my once every 2 weeks trip to the grocery store, which scares the crap out of me, but we have to be contained. I feel like that's China showed us how to take care of it, and other Asian countries have shown us how to take care of it, and we kind of have to follow their example. It's hard, but it's the right thing to do. And uh,
So
you know,
outside your front door right now,
yeah.
what are rules of businesses? How are other people handling it? I mean, you guys are in lockdown like we are, but what are the general rules of that, and
Yeah, they're
how
start.
are businesses dealing with that?
You know what? I just got a Facebook message today from one of our favorite nerdy restaurants on. I don't know if you've ever been to Vancouver, but we've got this pretty funky street called Commercial Drive, where all kinds of great record stores and clothing stores and cafes and restaurants. There's a place called Storm Crow Cavern, which is like it's a game cafe where people can play pen and paper games and express their love for nerdy things. But they just sent us their "we're closing down" notice today, and that's going to be happening like crazy. I think 75% of the restaurants that we know are probably in every city are gonna go. um, Everything's closed, and it's desolate. I only go out for a real walk now every couple of weeks, but it's definitely barren streets and everything's closed, and wide-eyed, nervous clerks in grocery stores, and people making huge space for people when they're passing each other on streets. Um, it is post-apocalyptic out there, and we've had Vancouver has a huge homeless problem downtown, and there's a lot of desperate people. Drug addiction is a big part of our society here. We were talking a little bit before we were rolling about the income disparity that's happening in our city. It's a very wealthy city, and so that means that there's a lot of people that can't keep up, and so there is a real desperation out there, and there's been a lot of businesses that have been broken into, stores and things like that downtown, and some looting that's happened. And so police presence has had to be picked up, even in a beautiful Canadian city like Vancouver. It's all kind of scary. And so there's a lot of businesses that have boarded up their windows to try to protect themselves. Um, and yeah, it's interesting times. Sorry for my
So
phone ringing back there.
you're a busy guy.
Yeah.
So places like Seattle, where it's not so much, you're not hearing about the looting so much. You're hearing about the people that say, "Well, I'm not going to get hit by this, so I'm going to go hang out by the park with 1,000 other people."
Yeah.
And at first they locked up the parks, and people said, "Well, fine, I'll just hop the fence." And now they're writing $1,000 tickets
Yeah, they're starting
for
to do
people
that
that are
here
out there.
too. Yeah, they're starting to do
So
that here too. And I did see some people when I went to buy groceries a couple weeks ago in the park, and I'm just shaking my head. It's just like, come on, and families intermingling a little bit, and it's yeah, I think what's going to become more challenging for people as the weather warms up and the time moves on with this is they're going to find it, and they're not sick or they don't feel the symptoms. They're going to feel it more difficult to reconcile why they have to stay inside, and they're going to push it. We just had some idiots out protesting in the middle of City Hall in Vancouver. A little group congregated and saying this is all a lie and this all BS, and we should be able to go. And it's like you're all either infecting people or you're going to get sick, like,
and when they do get sick, the
yeah,
people who were smart enough to stay inside are going to be the ones taking care of them,
yeah,
and they won't be thankful. They won't. So on the 11th, you guys, the federal government had it was the Emergency Response Act.
yes,
And
yes.
what does that entail, and how does that affect people?
Well, what's pretty cool about it is that anybody that applies for it gets it, and then if people are found not to be worthy of getting the emergency release thing, like if people are double dipping into employment insurance, or if they are still taking a salary and they get, then the federal government will come back and collect that money with interest. But they're not really holding back the funds, and we're self-employed, so even though COVID-19 is affecting our business, because we've been able to partner with other companies and do production work, over the last few years, and we can't do any of that, can't travel, can't do the main things that we normally would do in our business. We're not quite in that position to request for that aid. Um, but what I've heard from friends, and this includes artists and musicians and other people that we know through our communities, it's been incredibly easy for people to just go to the website or call the government and get signed up quickly in like 5 minutes, and then checks have arrived like 2 days later. So there
Oh,
is
wow.
a sense of urgency on the federal government's part. There's also another small business thing that they're taking care of up to 75% of wages as a loan without any interest payments, and you only need to pay 75% of that back or something like that. And we're circling around that information as for our own company and stuff, but so far we haven't. My wife and I, who run our business here, we haven't pulled the trigger on anything like that yet, but we may have to. And the government kind of needs to. And honestly, like, I hate to sound like such a bleeding heart socialist, but I was raised by a hippie, and I am grateful for the concern for others that my mom instilled in me, the empathy, and we're at the time in our history where that needs to be the most important thing, is how do we take care of each other, not how do we take care of me and how do I get the most for me, and then I can keep that in my tiny little circle, which I think has been the capitalist dream for so many people out there, but it's clearly not going to help us move forward from here. And so many businesses and so many people are going to be left behind if that is our attitude. And this is our test as a race, as a human race. Like, how do we take care of each other? And we were laughing at Andrew Yang's idea of $1,000 a month, universal basic income. Now that is starting to come up again, and hell yeah, I think that every country on earth should have some universal basic income to take care of every single person out there a little bit, not so people get lazy, but just so people aren't forgotten and sort of brushed under the carpet, and in the very real case, end up becoming the bedridden or the sick or the destitute or the imprisoned, that end up costing our society a lot more, if it's just dollars and cents. But ethically, this is our chance, like we're seeing also the benefits from not driving, and not flying everywhere. We're seeing the direct benefits right when we need to see them. It's like we're getting this chemistry test, this ecological environmental chemistry test. If you don't pollute the world with carbon, guess what? The world starts to clean up a little bit. Maybe we should think about that, and maybe now
Starting
is
to
our
get
chance.
we're starting to get a preview of the next season of Life After People.
Yeah.
Of the show, where everybody's gone and there's just, look at, everything's coming back. I mean, you look at like the canals in Italy and the sky above Los Angeles, and
yeah, and you know what? It isn't even life after people. It's people being more responsible. We're doing fine. We're fine. We're here. And we're able to communicate and connect, and not saying that this has to be the way that it is forever, but it's going to be the way that it is for a long time until there's a vaccine, likely. Like, we may do some rollout stuff and then there'll be another outbreak and everybody's going to go right back into lockdowns. This is the way it's going to be until we all feel 100%, like this is going to be a normal, which.
When is your lockdown over? Is there a set date on it currently?
No, I mean, I think they're thinking they're going to start doing some tests on rolling some stuff out in May, but the prime minister has even suggested that it's going to be fall 2021 before there's a real vaccine available for people, and it's not going to be. I mean, Bill, like we're all having this conversation and these thoughts right now. Like, I review movies. I'm not going to a movie theater until I feel safe. That's my job. And that's what I've been able to build my career. I go to movie theaters every week. I'm not going. I built a live show with the Vancouver Film School. I partnered with the Vancouver Film School downtown Vancouver, and it's been amazing to build up a little community there and have people come and watch the show live with me in the space. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that until I feel safe. I'm not going to fly anywhere until I feel safe.
Yeah, and it's. I mean, I was supposed to be in San Francisco next week, and I clearly am not even going to remotely get on a plane and go there.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing right now in Boise because in Idaho the stay home order, even though it's nationally on the 30th, it is supposed to end. It ends in Idaho tomorrow.
Wow.
And I'm not sold the governor's going to, since he was so slow to react in the first place,
Yeah.
I'm not sold that he's going to force that he's going to extend it. And then you have this thing where clearly I have a lot of companies that I work with they're dying. They're
Yeah.
having the hardest time. And part of you thinks, well, kind of would be nice if maybe we partially open it up, and but at the same time you're like, well, no, that's just going to be a big pile of regret, because then when everybody gets sick again,
Yeah.
you guys have, as a country, have had 900 deaths,
Yeah.
which people say, well, that's such a small amount, but where if you guys kicked back in tomorrow, where are you guys going to be a month
Yeah.
from now, death wise?
Yeah.
I've already had somebody I know die from this, and I've had so far 5 people I know be infected by it.
Wow.
And
I'm sorry.
yeah, it's a weird thing, because it's like, if you think it's such a small number, but in 2 weeks, it's going to be 10 times as many people that have been affected, in the sense of knowing somebody that has it, or knowing somebody that dies, or even more so getting it. So
Well, and until we test, we have no idea how pervasive this is. And, there's so many of us that probably have been infected because of travel or whatever, and we have shown no symptoms. And I don't
Mhm.
know if I've gotten it or not. I don't know. And I don't, like, these symptoms could be COVID, every sniffle and every cough that I've had. I don't know. I don't want to be a hypochondriac, but you just don't know, because there's no real testing around. And so it's the two-prong. Like, we need the testing, and then we need the vaccine that needs to be tested, and it needs to be as safe as possible, and it needs to be effective. And it's going to take a while. It definitely is. And, businesses have got to adapt to this, uh, the new opportunities that exist, and I read an article about restaurants. And if restaurants aren't opening with a real dramatic digital push, um, which would, if you've got restaurant um, customers, if you've got companies that are in the
Mhm.
food and beverage industry, this is something that you should be talking about with them. But if they don't deliver, they're out of business. Like, if they don't do deliveries, and if they aren't proactive with the visibility of the safety measures that they take in those deliveries, they're out of business. So it would be foolish for them. And this goes from the time that they start to feel a little bit safer about going to work, but forevermore. They need to all be proactive in deliveries, and not trusting these delivery companies who are putting their employees at risk and not paying them properly and doing all kinds of shady things, because some of these companies are booming right now, but they're doing it from some less than reputable kind of approaches out there. I think it's incumbent on every business to be a part of their community, to think about how do you protect your people and your customer base and satisfy them, and also bring in some money to keep your business afloat. But I think that extends to, like, one of my dreams has been to have an arcade, or a cool geek shop, a comic shop, or something like that, and then run my programming out of there and make it public facing. And I think about comic stores, because they've been struggling, right, already. And so now they're getting hammered, and Diamond Publishing, which actually publishes the print edition of comics, they've stopped. And so consequently, most of the comic publishers have frozen publishing anything, not even digitally, because they're in solidarity with Diamond and in solidarity with the comic book stores. DC has been the lone holdout. They are still distributing their comics digitally. Um, but I think about those comic stores and how much they've already struggled, and they now have to get into a delivery kind of mindset as well. So part of their employee training, I think, at every level is like, how do you utilize the internet, create content to tell people what you've got inside of your facility, and how do you now engage with your customers in a safe way that lets them have a connection to them walking into the store and still being able to purchase things. Also, with a real sensitivity that people's income is going to be massively affected throughout the rest of this year, and probably well into next year. And uh, their purchases are going to be down. They just are.
So let's talk about film for a second.
Yeah.
So clearly, the way that the film industry is either like Disney, they're just putting stuff right on Disney Plus, which I think is a smart idea.
Yep.
You've got other productions that are being pushed back a year, like the new James Bond film, and then you've got others that are clearly kind of just on hold and they don't even know what they're doing. And I got to see that this has got to change the way that film handles their releases. For first of all, I don't think anyone in 2 months from now is going to want to sit in a movie theater
Nope.
surrounded by 50 strangers. There's going to be the financial burden where films aren't that expensive, or they're pretty expensive, and nobody might be able to afford to go twice a week with two people to go see a film like they were. And also with video on demand being such a monster now, how do you think the film industry will handle this after it's all said and
A digital first is going to become a real big player, a big part of this. And pricing is probably going to be adjusted to be able to accommodate more people paying less to get in. Because what happened over the weekend is Trolls World Tour premiered on Friday, and it made $90 million, which blew away expectations. It made a ton of money. People buying it for their families, renting it at $20 for the weekend. And so that's a massive success. And I believe that we're probably going to see Bond and Black Widow and Mulan, all of these announcements in the next couple of weeks, especially related to more deaths. And it's just such a bleak way to kind of talk about all of this, but related to the mishandling of, um, uh, getting containment on this disease, and people being much more realistic about how long it's going to go. And that news, I think, is going to keep coming out. And I think it's going to become very clear that 2020 is a full write-off. And these studios not only are not in production for 2021, but the idea that they're going to come back and sort of carve out weekends and try to make a fraction of what they would through traditional theatrical just seems like total nonsense to me. They've spent millions of dollars on marketing already. There's an awareness about some of these huge properties. A lot of the editing and the CG work that goes into feature films can be done in isolated little, garages. And even though they're huge file sizes, there are ways that movies can cut up the work and let people work from home and do a lot of this kind of connection to completing a lot of these movies. You can't make a movie that way, but you can complete a movie that way. So I think it would be foolish, particularly in Disney's case, to not offer maybe a 2-week or a month window for you to be able to rent a film or purchase a film and then put it onto Disney Plus. And Warner Brothers should do the same thing. They've got HBO Max that's going to be launching this year. People don't want it to be this way. And my heart goes out to all the movie theaters out there, and maybe the movie theaters can be cut in on some of the revenue that comes through this in an effort to try to preserve those relationships. But honestly, we were crossing that threshold years ago, and we have fully crossed it now. We should have movies launched digitally and in theaters at the same time, and let the consumer decide where they want to watch this stuff. And I think that there's a case to be made for successful movies digitally, and having a run there, and then re-releasing in theaters based on people already having an awareness of the film and the production, and saying, but now let's get together and celebrate it together in a big movie theater, and kind of flipping it that way. Movie theaters, I think, need to kind of change the way that they approach public safety, but also public engagement when they come to the theaters. They need to make it even a bigger event, than it has been, and maybe shrink the screen availability down. But the screens that do exist are premium and, like next level in terms of scope and scale, and make it even a little bit more celebratory. But I think like smaller movie houses like the Alamo Drafthouse and things like where you can go and have dinner and a movie and have a real night out, I think those are going to be fine, the boutique kind of things. But I think that's sort of, in every mall kind of mentality, multiplex thing, those kind of screens are going to be in real trouble.
Yeah, I kind of feel this is also the time to shine for those last remaining 30 drive-in films or drive-in theaters that are around the U.S. And
Honestly, like there's a lot of real estate that could go that way too. You know, there's a lot of real estate where if you've got a deserted mall or a place where there's nobody going to it, and you know there's a movie theater that could be repositioned to be there, make it a drive-in theater. I think there's a lot of charm to that. You know,
yeah,
that could be
yeah,
really cool. And
they're
honestly, you could do a deal with Uber and down the road self-driving cars where the car would just drive up and pick you up and take you to some cool future Jetsons, you know, drive-in experience would be amazing.
that'd be kind of the way that we used to talk about going. Remember, you don't know what it was like on Friday night to go to Blockbuster, and now we're going to be telling kids, you don't know what it was like to go to a theater and you were surrounded by people. And
Yeah.
now you guys get your fancy cars. And anyway, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that happens downtown here where they'll just play a movie on the side of a building, and you know everybody eats and drinks and gets to watch it, and it's a lot of fun. And even though it's generally something like it's The Room or Princess Bride or something like that, where it's rather cultish or a loved film, but you know those get packed, and I love them. And
Yeah.
maybe that's the kind of stuff that maybe we do start doing more of these pop-up movie theaters. I think it's a great idea. So in fact, the building that our office is in has this big huge wall and a parking lot next to it. And the first thing I saw is this would be perfect just to play a movie. And you know we have a giant projector that we sometimes post on near the Capitol, and we'll just, you know, for pride or things like that, and we'll put messages of love, and but maybe it's time to start showing movies. So
That would be amazing. Well,
I,
the trick is to include the studios in that kind of planning as well, right? Because they'll come after you. I don't know if you saw that some children's hospital was playing some Marvel movies, and they got a cease and desist from Disney, you know,
yeah.
because they want the performance rights. Which I mean, they own this stuff, so that's how they make their money. You know,
Sorry,
it's
little Timmy. I know you have cancer, but I'm going to need $15 for that movie.
well, they reversed the decision eventually, but we are going to definitely be entering. Yeah, and that's just movies that we're talking about here. And it sucks, man, because I've grown up in movie theaters and I love going to them and I love that communal experience. And honestly, I was building a bit of a movie club with EP Live at the Vancouver Film School. I was working with the PR companies across Canada, and they were giving us, you know, 20 to 40 different tickets so I could bring my audience to go and see an early screening of movies. And we were making that a regular thing, and everybody was awesome with that. I love that, but I also would hate to be the person that orchestrates an outbreak, you know. Like I don't want to be asking for these tickets and then suddenly one of our people gets sick or is sick, or you know, that just is horrifying to me. So I'll be putting a kibosh on all of that stuff. But
Uh,
think about the cruise industry. That's an industry that I don't think
oh yeah.
that's never coming back, you know.
I can't believe. I mean, they spent 20 years, you know, having sewers backed up, and then they crash into something and get stuck. And you know, I'm surprised that they're still a thing. I love them because it's just a chance to get on a boat and drink for a week.
Yeah.
But I do have to believe that industry is going to fail.
That's a huge moneymaker for Disney. And I saw Grace Randolph, who's an internet. Uh, she talks about movies on YouTube and the movie industry, and she's got a lot of insider information. A lot of people that she knows connected to different phases, different executives and stuff. But she had conjecture that Disney is like you know, Bob Iger left, but he's back now, right? He's back in charge, trying to save the company because they're losing $30 million a day. They can't open anything, they can't shoot anything, they can't produce anything. Disney Plus subscribers are up to 50 million, which is great, but they need a lot more content, and they need a lot more content that kind of differentiates itself from the rest. They've got the brands, but they need a lot
Right.
more content. And so I suspect, you know, Black Widow will be on Disney Plus sooner rather than later. I don't think these release dates are realistic at all. Like the fall release dates for Bond or, you know, Black Widow. There's still a summer release date, I think, on Wonder Woman 1984. There's some kind of weird, big, huge movie is supposed to be coming out in August, and it's just like, no, what are you thinking? That's ridiculous. But one of the things that Grace Randolph uh, posited was that maybe Disney's going to buy EA. And there's been various times in both of these massive organizations where it could have gone either way. EA could have bought Disney, or Disney could have, but I feel like and Disney has been a part of the video game industry many times over the years, and they've owned developers and they've put their own stuff out there. But recently they've said, we're just going to partner. We're going to let our partners take all the financial risk, and then we'll loan them or we'll sell them the rights to our stuff. But now they need to be in people's homes, right? Now they desperately need streams of revenue. And so I would not be surprised if Disney makes a huge move there. But I don't know if you've read that there's conjecture that Apple may acquire Disney because their stock price is taking a hit, clearly. And Apple also is in the content business right now. So they, weirdly enough, they may be the purchaser of Disney, which would be insane.
That is, I mean, you just think about how Disney grew and bought everything up, and then is now choking.
Yeah.
And somebody else is just, Apple's just sitting in the wings going, gotcha. And
Yeah.
that's a really interesting thing. Video game industry, I don't know if this is even affecting them. I don't know if sales are up, sales are down. I mean, I've been playing more video games than I normally play. And I would think that quarantine would do that.
Yeah, it's funny. Like my job is to review games, and I do it anyways. But I also love to watch shows. I like to decompress from video games. That's what's kept me sane for so long. I think if I only did video games, I would go crazy because they can be all consuming, and you just spend your whole life. I spent a lot of my life right here, right in that chair, right behind me there. But I have been way more engaged by games. Maybe it speaks to the quality of what I've been playing recently, but they've been way more valuable escapism for me, as well as content, manifestation tools as well. I play them and I talk about them, than any shows or I just can't concentrate on TV shows and movies right now. They just seem so trivial in a way, because I guess there's a lot of breadth in linear entertainment where you have time to kind of think of the world and how it sort of connects to the fiction you're watching or the work you're watching. In games, because you're engaged with them and you're in those worlds and you've got to keep your avatar existing, there's less time to let the thoughts of what's going on in the world seep in, And so I've just been really, and that's the thing about video games, is that if people don't play, they don't understand their power. And it's not just their addictive power. It's the most incredible form of communication that we've created so far, because it employs all of the other learning that we've ever crafted, all of the movement learning, all of the cinematic learning, all the storytelling, all the music, all of these different ways that we've been able to craft art and story. And then you hand that to a person to live in that world and to also become a component of that art. If you work your way through a game in an incredible way, if you are very good at something, you are embellishing, you're adding brushstrokes to the end result of it. Like you have consequence in that work. And it's I don't think it's something that people just sitting and watching will get. They have to kind of commit to getting lost in a work like Zelda Breath of the Wild or something like that. And once that has happened, it's very easy to turn off everything else and think, this is where I want to be. I want to be in the, and there's also this obvious escapism element in here where you feel like you're accomplishing things and you feel like you're traveling to, into places in games. And when you're in quarantine, there's a freedom that games deliver that is profound, especially with the technology that developers have these days. And so it's been a great comfort to get lost in games and to play them the last little while. But what is happening in terms of the business is that people aren't really spending a lot of money on games right now. They're playing a lot of free-to-play games. They're playing their back catalogs. There are games that are massive hits like Animal Crossing, and the Nintendo Switch right now is sold out because of a game like that and the timing of an incredible experience like Animal Crossing. But I think people are going to be a little bit wary about where their dollars are going to go. And this is a big year for games because this is when the new PlayStation's coming out and the new Xbox is coming out. They're both expected in the fall. But if, you know, 10% of the global workforce is out of work or more, um, and even if the supply chains are all sort of caught up, I think it's going to be pretty hard for people to justify big purchases, across many, many households.
And people are playing a lot of there's that. Have you tried that House Party app?
I've heard of it, yeah, but I haven't played it.
It's terrible.
Yeah,
It's trivia questions that feel like they're written by a 15-year-old girl who just watches 3 TV shows.
right.
So it's really, really bad.
Yeah,
But we just keep playing it because it's a really good way that I now get to communicate with my friends. And clearly, we all just miss people.
yeah,
And I've done a lot of virtual happy hours, and I've done things like this, and I've done those games where the games are stupid, and all we do is just talk about how stupid they are. But at least we get to talk for 25 minutes and have fun and do whatever. So
that's awesome.
but right now, what are the top, let's say, top 3 video games people should be playing right now to shut their brains off to all this craziness?
Oh, that's a good question. I think Animal Crossing is the top one on the list right now. It's in terms of new games that have just sort of hit the market in the last little while. It's such an amazing, um, lovingly crafted escape. You play this little villager, and you're basically trying to recreate. You're trying to create a society. You're trying to create a civilization on this deserted island, and you take out a loan, and you eventually set up your homestead, and then you invite other characters to come and be a part of your home, and your home island, and you decide where their houses are going to be, and you do a lot of chores to make the island look cooler, and there's an economy where you're earning bells, which are the dollars in the game, to buy cool things for your house or to expand your house into more rooms and to drop down bridges and inclines to make accessibility through the island a little bit better. But then you're also connecting with other players online by visiting their islands and inviting them to come to your island. Nintendo's got a separate phone app that lets you communicate and chat, and you create your own outfits and things, and you can share codes with other people to wear the clothing that you've designed. And it's just loaded with all of these wonderful, cutesy little hooks. It's so compelling, and it's so hard to stop playing. And especially if you have somebody else in your household that also plays, because they can create their own save game and then their own character, and then visit your island and leave you little notes and things like that. And so I made a T-shirt for my daughter that says "Dad loves Ruby," and then she's worn it a little bit in her game, and it's an amazing game, and it couldn't have come at a better time. And so you'll see a ton of stuff on Twitter and on social media, people sharing their creations and their homes, and you know it's so utopian, this whole concept of building a, a space that everybody just loves and has great sunny days on. And it is a great source of relief, I think, for a lot of pressure. That's another one in a totally different way would be Doom Eternal, which is the new Doom game, which is so fast and furious and gory and bloody, and obviously not for every family member, but it's really, really well tuned, and the idea isn't, you don't even think about reloading in this game. It just auto reloads for you. So you're just trying to get through the levels and kill the demons as fast as you possibly can. There's a lot of great new mechanics, like being able to, swing from level to level and ledge to ledge. And it's beautiful, and it runs perfectly on new PlayStation 4 or Xbox One or PC. And then another one I would think, let's see, I guess Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is uh, it's a remake to one of the most acclaimed role-playing games ever. It came out for the PlayStation 1 in 1997, and it's so beloved by the community. And Square Enix has been hinting that they were going to do this for years and years, and they finally have done this 23 years later. And it's massive and sprawling. And what they've done is they've taken a lot of the design ideas and the backgrounds and stuff that they created, which were all sort of um, they were like background art in the old PlayStation 1 game. Now you can walk through the alleys of this futuristic city, which is hovering above this slum, and you get involved in this massive, um, overturn the empire kind of story with cool characters and beautiful cut sequences, and it's great fidelity and it's very compelling and it's great escapism again.
Yeah, I put a lot of hours into Final Fantasy and Doom when they first came out, like
Yeah.
constant. In
Yeah,
fact, I used to play Doom at work. I would just sit there and just play it and just like run through levels. Oh man, it was so much fun.
Yeah, it's amazing when a franchise can survive and just persevere and be vital for so long like that.
Well,
Resident
it's
Evil,
great that it could be relevant also in when it comes back in its reboot. And sometimes people just forget what the entire original purpose of the game was, and they come out and they say, "Well, here's a new version that has nothing to do with what you had before," and it ends up just being a stinker, which has
yes,
happened a lot.
yes, yeah. And what's I think, the cost to make a lot of these games these days is incredibly high, and so there's a lot more risk aversion, which isn't always a good thing. That usually means that there's a lot of independent development that does take those risks and comes up with some interesting stuff, and builds really fun new game mechanics and employs new ideas, but maybe has some challenges sort of getting seen out there. But the AAA space is relying on established franchises and properties, but they're crafted in a way that with a real sensitivity to the desires of the fan base out there, and also wanting to kind of hit some new highs technologically to advance the medium forward. And there's some problems with that because it means that we're not really seeing a lot of new IP as much as we should. But video games are different than movies. It's not like a 1990s movie looks that extraordinarily different from a 2020 movie, but a 1990s video game looks very different from a 2020 game. And so there were so many good ideas back then that there's a lot for developers to go back into and reimagine. And so it sort of satisfies the desire of the publisher to not overspend on the creation of something new. But it also lets developers, sometimes the developers that worked on those original games, come back and try it again, And so I'm in the camp where remakes can be a very good thing for the business, but I also do love, risk taking and brand new ideas for sure.
I'm still waiting for them to get Goldfinger right.
I know.
That's the one. Just
I
give
know.
me the good old Goldfinger game, and I'll be so happy. I'd also take a really good Shadows of the Empire, but besides that, I'm okay with everything else.
Well, you never know. I mean, if Disney starts taking, because they own all the Star Wars stuff now, if they start taking the video game side much more seriously, like the rumors of the new Star Wars stuff is all related to Knights of the Old Republic. They're doing the High Republic as part of their fictional onslaught, which is years later, getting very granular here, but years later than the stuff that was in Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, which was that classic BioWare developed role-playing game. And then they've got an Old Republic massively multiplayer online game that's been running for years and years. But there's talks that there's movies coming from that sort of area and from that fiction. So there is a possibility that they're going to start to look back at their video game catalog and say, well, it's time for a new Rogue Squadron. It's time for a new Dark Forces. It's time for a new X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. And if they buy a video game company, that's what they're going to have to do. Shadows of the Empire, let's bring it back. Dash Rendar.
Oh, I know. That would be so awesome.
Right? Yeah.
Oh, cool. All right. Well, this has been really, really informative. This has been good stuff. I'm glad that Canada is doing well and being smart.
Yep.
And, like I said, it seems that most people are.
Well,
I think
it's so clear. Like the only course is to figure out how to, break the curve down. Like we have more cases and more people in hospital, it's just going to steamroll and it's just going to keep going and going and going. We have to tamp it down. We have to stay home. It's the only way.
I agree. And find that fine line of supporting your favorite business and keeping them alive, but at the same time, keeping them safe and keeping yourself safe. And
Yep.
It's a hard one. Every day I think, well, maybe I should maybe get some food from so and so today. But then you get that anxiety of, well, crap. What if in turn they end up someone there is sick, and I
Yep.
want to help their business, so I just go maybe once a week and tip the crap out of them and hope they're going to be okay. So
Yeah.
it's that fine line. So
It is.
cool. Well, Victor, thanks for doing this.
My pleasure.
This has been like really, really informative. And make sure that everybody, I'm going to post the link to your show on here
Cool.
so everybody can see it.
Cool.
And other than that, anything you want to add?
No, this has just been great, man. I miss you, and this was
Yeah.
a fun invite, and I hope we get to do something like this again soon.
I love that a lot of my Canadian friends are so vocal about U.S. politics. You're one of them. You're really high on the list, and we lean the same way, which is really great. So I'm always, yeah.
I just
Somebody's,
I have so many friends and so much history. Like EP wouldn't exist without America. Like my first broadcasters were American, and that led a lot of my Canadian broadcasters to go, "Oh, you've sold the show into America? Yeah, we'll take it up here." And that's the way Canadians kind of think, right? Which I'm fine with. But all of my career has been I get on a plane or I drive down to an American company and I meet with American creative people and I talk to them about their dreams and their crazy ambitions and we make content about that. And so consequently, I've got 3 decades of friends in the States. That's more than half my life I've been going down there. And it's heartbreaking to see the the betrayal that this current government has done to your people. It's unbelievable.
want to watch my cup magically get filled?
Oh yeah.
Oh, Don, yeah, you can save some for you. Oh, you're so sweet. Cool. And were you doing stuff with Tech TV?
Yeah,
we go.
We were on G4 for a long time, and that was a great partnership. They were awesome, but yeah, I mean it was a lot of growing pains and a lot of lessons learned along that way. Media just completely changed when the internet and YouTube and Twitch and everything kind of really started to take over. Just the idea of uh, the way things used to be made um, being perpetuated just didn't make a lot of sense, and that's why it's just been this upheaval. And tons of people in the creative world too. It's like budgets are down and you can do things less at every scale, right up to the big blockbuster films. There's a lot more awareness of it, there was this artificial technological blockade before where it would just cost a fortune to even think about how to create things, and all of that is gone. All of that is gone. And so you can't sort of put a wall up between a creative expression anymore. People can grab a phone and build movies at this point, right?
And you've made it viable from that time, because I think of, like, I was on I knew a lot of the screensavers. I was on an episode and I kind of followed those guys, and I still know Leo and I still know a lot of those people, but
Yeah.
a lot of them aren't doing any of this stuff anymore.
Well,
And
yeah, you gotta. I mean, we had Canadian budgets, which I think we didn't have much money, so we got used to that. And all of my people were incredibly multifaceted. Nobody was sort of like thinking, "This is my job. This is the only thing I do." That just doesn't exist in Canada. You can't come into production with that kind of mindset, and I don't think you can come into that kind of mindset in 20 anymore. Period. And
right.
honestly, if I were to hire people again for a new version of EP, which I would love to do, it would be based on what they already are showing me they're creating. I'd ask people to send me to your YouTube channel. I want to see the kinds of things that you want to create. And I also would want to know that you're not just wanting to be your own YouTube brand, that you want to actually be a part of a collective, because I feel like that's the other ugly side of this, is that everybody's just trying to be their own industry, as opposed to remembering that great content comes through conversation and collaboration and people kind of sharing the load to build something together. And honestly, that's what I'm really afraid of, is that so much of the truth in editorial is being ripped away because it's this one-to-one kind of relationship between a human and a brand, and just paying people to say things, and that absence of a team is a very big problem, I think, in when you're talking about products or agendas or whatever. I think that an editorial team is a very important thing, and it's something to be nurtured and protected. But it becomes increasingly more difficult as we become a much more fractured and fractious, everybody's a broadcaster type of society.
We are, but it's also one of the things that it's surely right now everybody's a photographer that bought a digital camera, and everybody is a filmmaker that has the same thing, and people are making stuff all the time, but it's going to boil down to art and creativity. And we our agency, we just won a gold medal for a project that we did, and it was $1,000 project for a client, and we beat out clients that were spending $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 on these projects.
Yeah.
And then we almost won another, and we listened to the debating on that. It never came down to how much money they spent. It never came down to how big the production was. The whole thing was just, I feel more creativity in that than that.
Yeah.
So the budgets really don't mean a whole lot like they used to. And clearly, if I watch documentaries like they're going out of style, and I can tell. I've made a documentary and I know how much money they put into these.
Yeah.
And it's not production value anymore. It's how sincere it is.
Yeah.
And just really how much of your heart you put into it. And I think that goes with film and television, and even video games. You can put as much money as you want into a video game, but if it's just a stinker, it's a stinker.
100%. Yeah.
So I think it's all about the art, and at the very end of the day, the artists and those are the people who are still going to be standing and doing well. So
we will always need stories,
and that's why you're killing it. You are definitely killing it, and the fact that you don't age. But those are just two different things. So,
well, that's very kind. You are a very kind person. Thank you, Bill.
All right. Well, I'm going to let you get back to your daughter playing the games behind you, because she's probably beating all your high scores right now.
She beat the Pokemon yesterday. She beat Pokemon for the Switch, and credits were rolling. And I'm like, I couldn't be prouder. It's like that's her first Pokemon that she beat, and I was like, wow, man, that's incredible. I think Rue, was that your first game that you beat on your own? That was the first game she beat on her own. That's my kid, 8 years old.
I used to play my son video games all the time, and I'd beat him. Then I remember the first time he actually beat me in something. I'm like, you should just play by yourself now.
Yeah.
So it was a hard one to swallow. He took it as, wow, that'll never happen again. And I took it as, oh my gosh, that's just going to be the norm. So I'll just play my own games. Cool. All right. Well, be safe out there.
You too.
And I'll check in with you, and we'll talk soon.
All right, man. Take care.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.